Fur, Fins, and Feathers, Abraham D. Bartlett and the Invention of the Modern Zoo. Written and illustrated by Cassandra Maxwell. From the time he was a little boy, Abraham D. Bartlett loved animals. He was fascinated by anything with fur, fins, or feathers. His father knew a man who owned a collection of wild animals, including giraffes, zebras, and tigers. This menagerie was displayed in rows of bear cages inside a huge building, the usual way wild animals were exhibited at the time. People lined up, bought tickets, curious to see creatures they had never seen before. The owner allowed Abraham to take lion cubs and other young animals from their cages and play with them. Abraham loved the feel of their fur and the way their noses wiggled. He listened to them yip and yowl as if they were sharing their secrets with him. But when it came time to put the animals back, he felt sorry for them. They had no place to explore, no place to hide, nothing to play with, and they didn't always get enough to eat. And their keepers teased them sometimes. Abraham knew he had to find a way to help the animals. Abraham spent every night reading about aardvarks and zebras and everything in between. He dreamed of working with animals when he grew up. But in the early 1800s, there weren't many jobs that involved animal care. As a young man, Abraham found work preparing animal specimens for exhibits at the Museum of Natural History. The job taught him animal anatomy, but it didn't fulfill his fondest wish, working with living animals. To keep his dream alive, he spent every night reading about camels and coatis, lemurs, and leopards, just as he had as a boy. Eventually, Abraham's award-winning exhibits caught the attention of the members of the London Zoological Society. They asked to meet Mr. Bartlett. As Abraham was beginning talking, the people were amazed at how much he knew about animals and astounded by his ideas on their care. "This man is a walking animal encyclopedia," they whispered to each other. They were so impressed that they asked Abraham to be the next superintendent of the zoo. Abraham's dream was coming true, and to celebrate, he bought a frock coat and a silk top hat. People loved seeing the tall man in the tall hat crisscrossing the zoo. They began to call him Papa Bartlett because of the tender care he took with the animals and the time he took to talk to the visitors. In those days, there was no safe way to sedate an animal if it was sick or hurt and needed treatment. When Wallace, a ferocious lion, had a claw that grown into his tender paw pad, Papa Bartlett had to step in or Wallace would become lame. Two keepers secured the frightened lion with ropes while Papa Bartlett snipped and clipped fast as lightning, and soon Wallace was himself again. Abraham made sure that the keepers he hired not only loved animals, but also studied the science of animal care. It was an important step forward in creating a zoo where all the animals could be happy. Another time, a rhinoceros had a horn that grew downward and got in the way of her eating. How could Abraham win Miss Bet's trust so he could help keep her? For days, he went to her cage. He scratched her ears as he talked in a calm voice. The week after that, he practiced cutting off her horn using his walking stick while he continued scratching and talking. When he sensed she was ready, he replaced the walking stick with a sharp saw, and she stood perfectly still as he sawed off her troublesome horn. Abraham thought people would wonder why the rhino's horn was missing. He decided to post a sign to explain. When he noticed crowds gathering to read it, he got an idea. "We should include explanations on all of our exhibits and sell guidebooks too," he said. It was the first time a zoo labeled its exhibits with more information than simply the animal's name. Scientists in Abraham's day were discovering thousands of species of animals, birds, fish, and insects that had never been outside their native countries. They had shipped them to Papa Bartlett. One of these was a red panda. The animal was barely alive when he arrived from China, too sick to eat. Papa Bartlett took him home and experimented with foods until he found something the red panda would eat. Egg yolks mixed with sugar and boiled milk, tenderly fed by spoonfuls, brought him around, and before long, mulberries from Abraham's garden was his favorite food. Abraham realized that a balanced diet was vital to his animals. This made an enormous difference to their care. In 1865, Abraham purchased the first African elephant to be seen in Europe. At the time, the elephant stood a mere 4 feet high and was caked in dirt. Scrubbed down, kept clean, and well fed, he grew to be an enormous 11 feet tall. His name, Jumbo, came to mean anything of huge size. Papa Bartlett Zoo became a must-see destination. Visitors packed the walkways and jostled each other to see the splendid new array of fur, fins, and feathers. Even Queen Victoria came. But as excited as the zoo was for people, many of the animals were still housed in small cages, many like they had been at the menagerie. Then one night, as Abraham listened to a lullaby of grunts, growls, hoots, and squeaks, he got a new idea. Abraham measured and made sketches. He drew up plans and presented them to the Zoological Society. Soon architects, bricklayers, and carpenters were busy. They built spacious buildings with windows for sunlight and fans for ventilation. They added plants, trees, hollow logs, rocks, grasses, and ponds to create habitats that were like the animals' homes in the wild. "Our animals need to be in enclosures so people can safely see them," Abraham said, "but they also need spaces to explore, places to hide, and things to play with. More than anything, we want them to be happy." By listening so carefully to what the animals told him, Abraham D. Bartlett became a pioneer in creating the first modern zoo. He helped people appreciate the wild animals as never before. And proud as any papa, he welcomed thousands of visitors to marvel at the magnificent animals, happy at last in their home at the zoo. Timeline, author's note, further reading, and the chart. And a quotation by Abraham D. Bartlett himself. The end.